For today's project, this is going to be a real experiment. I'm replacing the stern light for our 67 Glastron. This was the base for the stern light post when I got the boat, and this is pretty pitted up. And as far as the actual light that goes in here, the original was long lost, and when I got the boat, it's just an aluminum pipe that doesn't really fit right, and it kind of looks pretty rough. So we're just going to put a new stern light on here. And what I want to try with the Lowrider 3 CNC is to see if we can cut some aluminum. There have been folks that have cut aluminum with these. My experience with some of the home-built CNCs that I've done with cutting aluminum has been less than stellar. It's been workable. There's a few videos back in the 330 total videos I think I've done. There's a few that have cut some aluminum, but they've been very shallow cuts and not a lot of time spent on them. But we're going to give this a try and see what we can do. As far as CNC software goes, Vectric is really pretty awesome. They have a big suite of stuff for different applications. And you can set up your tool paths to be consistent or to save your settings. And again, this is just falling back to the default that we had there. But if you zoom in here, you can see each pass as it goes around. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is the way I set it up. So it should just take little shaves off as it goes around. I've also slowed down the feed rate. And when it comes to aluminum, there are certainly special bits for it, depending on whether you want upcut or downcut, depending how many flutes you want. I think I've got 2 flutes on the one that's on here, and lots of folks have very strong opinions on that. I believe in just trying and testing and seeing what works for you based on the material and the tools at hand. So again, we're going to give this a shot and see how it works out. Because we're cutting aluminum and I want this to be really anchored to our sacrificial board here, I just drilled 2 holes, so this is absolutely not going anywhere. When I do wood on here, I actually have a plastic air gun nailer, and we just use the plastic nails to hold down stuff, and then when we're done we just chip those off. But for this, we're going to hold this down so it goes nowhere. It's kind of interesting. I've had so many little CNCs that having this much table space it's a real luxury, and it's really cool. And this LR3, this Lowrider 3 from V1 Engineering, is an awesome fun build. And if you're into CNC stuff and you want more space, you might want to give it a try. It's a lot of fun to build. As far as the table goes here, something I've noticed I need to be a little bit careful of, because we've got so much space here and desk space or bench space is always at a premium. It's very easy to load up the table here with stuff, and you got to keep that in mind when you're moving this thing around so you don't run into all your junk on the table here. Alright, let's wake this thing up. I haven't cut anything for a couple weeks here, so let's close this down. And in past videos I've kind of gone over a little bit about the machine here. This is just a very old laptop that we've got Mach 3 running on. This is my old controller from a 6040 that we repurposed for this Lowrider. So let's turn this on. We're not using the controller for the speed for a spindle because we're just using this Makita router in here. Another thing that bothered me or was very confusing when I first got this was they mislabeled or miswired up the control boards in here. So instead of this being X, Y, and Z, it's Y, X, and Z, which took a while to figure out, especially to have our orientation here horizontally set up to make it a little more easy to visualize. But we're working here, so hit the reset here. I've got these spacers in here because when I cut power to the steppers, the whole thing kind of drops, and these were just 3D printed spacers. So the first thing we got to do is raise this up a little bit, and for Mach 3 to raise and lower your Z, use your page up and page down. So let's get this up, and then we'll pop these guys off. Hope I can do this with one hand. It's a real tight 3D printed part. There's that one. And let me take off the one on the other side. And then this guy here. And this just keeps this all nice and consistent with our height. Got our USB drive plugged in. Let's load in our file. And what did I call this? Sternlight base plate. Aluminum Sternlight base. So we're way down here. We need to get our alignment straight here. So let's bring this over to our aluminum. What I usually do is switch back over to our pendant here so I can walk away. And then to lower our Z, we hold this down. We can lower that down. Alright, I need to turn the phone off, or at least have both hands so I can kind of get this set up, and then we'll go from there. Part of the fun with making these CNCs is you can choose which extra features you want. And this machine, this build, I don't have any automatic limit switches or anything that tells the computer where the limits are and where the ends are and stops are. Same with the touch plate for the Z. I don't have a touch plate on here. I kind of do this old school. So I use a piece of paper and I slowly drop the Z down until I have a little bit of tension on here. And then I know that's where my Z is. And then we come back over here and then just zero that out. Then we've got our Z all set. And then to test where our Z marker was, I've moved this off manually, come over to the computer, and we just go to Z, and then it should go right to where that paper was. And then we're set up. With a little trial and error and going through my box of end mills and bits that I've bought at various times in my life, I found one that worked much better. So we were getting some pretty rough cuts with this, played around with our feeds and speeds, and we've got a much cleaner cut here. So we're going to break this out, cut off our little tabs, and clean that up on a sander and see what we got. We've got our aluminum piece here before polishing, so we're going to make that nice and shiny, and our edges look pretty good. And I think that'll be a good cover cap. So again, that's the old one that's all pitted and in need of major restoration. So we'll put that aside for now. I had these parts laying around, so I figured I might as well use them rather than buying new things. And then to re-chrome parts is not inexpensive. So for the time being, we're just using what we've got. And an inexpensive stern light. We'll drill a hole through there to run the wires through, and that'll mount onto there, onto the back of the boat, which we'll head out in a minute and line up. This is where the old stern light was, where that old piece was mounted. And what we're going to do is put our aluminum piece here after we get it a little more shiny. And our stern light will just mount right on top of there like that. So, just marking some of our holes. Our DIY mounting plate. Ready to go on. There's our stern light. All bolted in and wired up. Looks kind of cool, kind of neat, using scrap stuff we had laying around. And as far as turning this on, this is a temporary setup right now, this battery box, kind of power supply box. So until I decide where I want to mount this on our dash, I kind of put this together so we can check our power level and control some different things on here. I've got another video on this kind of tucked away somewhere. Cigarette lighter, USB, bow light, stern light, and bilge pump in the back. So, but as far as our stern light here, here's our stern light. Nice little low profile stern light in the back of the boat. I like that. Looks pretty good. We're slowly gearing up for the season. Have a lot of other projects to get to for the e-propulsion Navy 6. The next thing is going to be the battery bank box. And I've got a few batteries that I'll be setting up in a different container than that one so that we can house 3 of those and have 150 amp hours of power reserve. And I'm looking forward to trying this out this season. So there we go. Just a little project for this afternoon. Thanks very much for taking a look.